On 24th February 2018, tragedy struck on the outskirts of Muzaffarpur in Bihar when a speeding SUV plowed into a group of children outside a government school. The incident, which occurred in the Minapur police station area right after school hours, claimed the lives of at least 9 children and injured over 20 as the children were making their way back home. In 2021 alone, 7,764 children were killed due to road crashes. I'm just going to pause for a moment to let that sink in. This comes up to approximately 21 children dying each day in India owing to road crashes. This is a horrific number, to say the least. What are some of the biggest reasons behind these crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving children? Welcome to Milestones, the SaveLIFE podcast with me, Karthik. This is a show where we discuss various aspects of road safety with the aim of ultimately working towards safer roads and a safer India. I'm your host, Karthik Nagarajan, and today on the show, we're joined by Mr. Parthanil Ghosh and Ms. Karuna Raina. Mr. Ghosh, President, Retail Business, HDFC ERGO General Insurance, the second largest general insurer in the private sector, comes with more than 30 years of experience, with over 25 years in financial services. Additionally, he also leads fraud management and CSR functions for HDFC ERGO, the company which has undertaken significant work with SaveLIFE Foundation to safeguard roads across the country. We would be delighted to hear Mr. Ghosh's industry perspective on initiatives and actions necessary for making roads safer for all people during their everyday commute. We're also joined by Ms. Karuna Raina, who's the Director of Public Policy and Research at SaveLIFE Foundation. She manages a portfolio of work at both national level as well as in focus states. She loves to find connections between research and policy in varied mobility contexts. As a new mom, she's a zealous champion of car seats for children. Mr. Ghosh, Mr. Raina, welcome to the show. Mr. Ghosh, I thought I'll start the show with you at a fairly broader level, right? And road fatalities have become, unfortunately, a very grim reality, of our today. Where do you think, in a broader sense, the problem lies?
See, you started with a very, very important question of road fatalities, right? And it is not only road fatalities, but grievous injuries that happen on the roads of India. And as we all know, that India is known to be the road death capital of the world. So almost 1.5 lakh deaths in a year, 10 lakh plus grievous injuries. So it's a really, really a grim situation, as you rightly said. So in my view, that there are multiple issues that we face. One, of course, is the infrastructure issue. The road conditions are not good. Then the proper enforcement of the traffic rules are not there. The driving behavior, it is something on the large metro cities or even on the highways, two villages connecting, one highway connecting two villages. The driving behavior pattern is absolutely not as per standard. And most importantly, the awareness of the general citizen, how to cross the road, where to cross the road, where not to cross the road, what does a zebra sign means, or even on the highways, if you see that people come on the wrong way, people try to cross the road with a bicycle. So it's a mix of all these things. But I think if I have to pick two or three things, one is definitely the road infrastructure, which is definitely improving, both by the help of the central government and the state government. The second one is the enforcement. Enforcement is not strong. And thirdly, the awareness level. It has to come up the mark.
One thing I realized is, in a country like India, information is power, right? Whether it is understanding how best to use your cell phone, or understanding how a government machinery works, right? Or understanding how organizations work. All of this is what will lead us to a better utilization of that, right? Now, using that analogy to the subject we're discussing today, when it comes to information on safety equipment, their necessity, and the big importance they play, they make the difference between life and death. When it comes to information, how would you assess where we are today, and what do you think we can do better?
I think, yeah, let me start with a very, very positive thing. If I look back 20 years back, wearing a helmet when you are driving a two-wheeler was something of a fashion. Today, largely, if you see across India, the smaller cities or large metros, I think people have got that habit of wearing a helmet. Now, why it has happened? This particular awareness has happened because the government machineries, the law enforcement agencies has come down heavily. And with the kind of awareness campaigns that you see, with that, people understood this is extremely necessary to wear a helmet. And not only helmet of who is driving, but for also the pillion riders. So on the awareness part of it, lots of things has happened, but I think we have to go a miles away. Now, I'll give you an example. Last year, there was a very high-profile death in the road while coming to Mumbai of a very well-known industrialist.
Yeah,
And after
yeah.
that, suddenly the awareness went up to wear the rear seat belt even on a four-wheeler. Now, my question is that why you require to see a death and then do something, and after 3 4 months our memory is short, so we have forgotten. So you need to have these two mix. So one is an awareness. Yes, there is a huge amount of awareness today. The government of the states and the center is talking about the condition of the road or what kind of safety measures you are going to take. But individually, as a citizen, we have to understand that. And while we say that we have to understand that, we have to be aware, it has to start from the basic level at the schools when we are an infant, because we know that what we learn the basic things we learn at a very, very young age. So something in India, I think what is lacking is this awareness at the school level about the traffic safety, road safety. And if we can inculcate that into our children, I think we will be doing a great service to this nation, because the kind of a GDP loss that we see, I think our GDP, I don't recall exactly the percentage, but some X percentage will go up if we can reduce the road fatalities. So awareness, as you say, that where we need to do, I think the schools, one, then the NGOs like a Save Life Foundation, the work that they are doing across various high fatality zones, these kind of things, along with the state, private, public participation, these things should improve. Yeah.
Ensuring the safety of children during their commute to school or otherwise requires active engagement with various sections of road users who directly or indirectly influence their well being and safety. This includes drivers, pedestrians, transport authorities, school administrations, parents, and community members. By diligently adopting and implementing safety measures earmarked for children, fostering collaboration and raising awareness, we can try to create a collective effort aimed towards safeguarding children and designing safer environments for their daily commutes. Ms. Reina, I have a 6-year-old, and I often wondered that, when I look around the city, much of it is not really created with them in mind, at least from a design perspective. You are a new mom, and when you see the world from a 95 centimeter elevation, from a kid's point of view, and if you had the opportunity to experience the city from this elevation, what would you do differently?
Actually, quite frankly, Karthik, it scares me to think about what children must be thinking of when they're out there on roads with that elevation, because there's a heightened sort of awareness of hazards around you. The way you experience the city, the way you experience different things. As adults, maybe because of, of course, our heights, but also because of our experience, maybe we are numb to many of those hazards. But I think children, they face a lot of vulnerabilities. And like you said, a lot of it is design oriented. And a lot of design can be improved to make children feel safer. So whether it's, walk from your home to the school bus, or whether you're going to the nearby market, or whether you're going to the playground nearby, the cities are designed for adults. And then at best, we are looking as children as mini adults, which they're not. their cognitive abilities, their ability to appreciate risk. All of that is very, very different from an adult. And therefore, we need to keep that in mind while we're designing our cities, when we're designing our roads, to keep that in mind. And a clear sort of indicator that we're not doing that is that, roughly 11,000 people die near schools and colleges in India, and many of them are schools, those students who are going to these schools and colleges, which then also brings us to the point: how safe is our journey to school? How safe is their
Yeah.
journey to school? And so I feel it's in if while we are designing policies, while we are designing roads, if we are also appreciative of what they are going through, it would also help us to then relook at our priorities, and ensure that design is not just people centric, but design is, oriented in a way that it's looking at the lowest common denominator, and then you're looking at the needs of that kid who's going out there, perhaps without an adult. Maybe they don't have an adult around them, and there are a lot of street children on the road. So ensuring that they feel safe when they are on road would need a complete overhaul of, how we design roads in India.
Yeah, and in fact, as we were asking that question, how safe is their commute to school? It's just such an alarming question, right? It's not a question that you normally ask in most civilizations. Right? It should be probably the most safest commute ever in the world, isn't it? And those numbers that we spoke about, in the thousands of children that we use, the tens of thousands almost that we use every year, is just unacceptable, I would say, right?
I just want to add one more thing here. One of the first crashes which I investigated with Save Life, and I'm not a trained crash investigator, but I went to Nurpur, which is in Himachal. It's a place near Dharamshala, and 28 children died in a road crash. While they were, I mean, it was the end of the summer breaks, and it was the first day back to school, and they were coming back from school to their village, and the bus fell over in a gorge, and most of them died, and children as young as 4-year-old, died. And when I went there on the scene, I could see their school bags and their school diaries there, and it was shocking. But what was more shocking was that the bus fell on a truck, and that truck had also rolled over that same gorge 6 months ago. So if the construction or the design errors would have been fixed 6 months ago, 28 children would not have lost their lives. So in that sense, a lot of road crash deaths are preventable. And I think it's a multi-stakeholder sort of issue, and different people need to do different things to ensure that children don't die on roads. Because when a child dies on road, they don't die because of any fault of theirs. It's not that they decided to speed. It's not that they decided to not wear a safety equipment. It's some adult making a decision for them, or it's some other adult who made that error. I feel it's one of the most unfortunate sort of things to happen in a
Yeah.
civilized society, a child dying in a road crash.
Yeah, I mean, we've done quite a few episodes, in this show, and every time we start with an anecdote, which is usually an accident. I can't think of, well, all of them are terrible and heart wrenching. I can't think of something that was much more difficult, to articulate than the one, that I did at the beginning of this episode, the incident in Bihar. I can only imagine, actually, I can't even imagine how traumatic it must have been for you to sort of go there and witness the crash that you spoke about. But just delving into this, it's not like, as a country, we've not tried to tackle this problem, right? We do have some laws and provisions around usage of child safety equipment, especially, child restraint systems and helmets and so on and so forth. Right? In fact, if I'm not wrong, a 2021 study of SaveLIFE Foundation found that an alarming number of parents were actually unaware of such safety measures, despite them existing. What, according to you, are the reasons behind this lack of awareness, and also this apprehension towards using what you can and should be using?
Right. I think there are multiple reasons, and I'm drawing from not just our experience in our research, but also of my personal experience. Of course, one, like you said, is lack of awareness. There's generally people are not aware of the need and the amount of safety a child restraint system or a protective device provides. I think the second is also the beliefs norms that your kid is perhaps safer in your lap. Or the lap of anyone else sitting in the in a four wheeler. Third, I would say is market related. Whether it's the pricing of child restraint systems or whether it's just the sheer supply, where the I think it's only off late the market has seen some Indian companies making child restraint systems, but earlier it was a lot of foreign companies coming in priced at like 25-30,000 a child restraint system. And I think people are sensitive to that price point. I mean, they would think twice before sort of putting in that kind of money. The second issue with markets is supply. Also, again, of course, how many child restraint systems are there, but also how is our whole ecosystem sort of geared to provide that? So, for example, if I take my own example, if I have a child restraint system in my car, great. But if let's say I want to take a cab through an aggregator app, even if I am going from there for their premium segment of SUVs or sedans, I won't get an add-on option of selecting a child restraint system, even if I want to pay for it. So let's say if I'm going to airport, if I carry my own child restraint system and then lug it around, or I just take my kid in my lap, and I have twins. So then do I carry two child restraint systems with me? So the whole sort of ecosystem also needs to be able to provide that. And I'm sure a lot of people would be willing to pay for that add-on if the if everyone is more sensitive to that, because they are providing additional helmets to a two-wheeler taxi. Then similarly, that safety equipment sort of ensuring that a four-wheeler sort of if somebody is renting that you're able to provide that needs to be extended. So then that supply issue sort of needs to be handled. The other is, I think the fourth reason is the perceived inconvenience. People feel it's inconvenient. Why? I mean, at the kid, why would the kid need a seat? I mean, an adult can sit there. So I think that shift in sort of mental framework needs to be there. And finally, I think there's a regulatory gap. So, for example, the Motor Vehicle Amendment Act, of course, says that a child restraint system should be there, but the language is it should be either it's seatbelt or child restraint system. So when you make it optional, and when you say that, let's say a 10-month-old infant is also you're okay with them wearing just a seat belt, the science doesn't support that. It may be counterproductive for an infant to wear that. So it needs to be mandatory. You need to ensure that it's only child restraint system and nothing else for children. So I think the regulatory gap needs to be fixed, because then that goes on to also ensure that the other reasons which are there are also sort of addressed.
Mr. Ghosh, when I was asking you the previous question, you were talking about it from a education of a children perspective, right? I think, if I can take the liberty of saying it, as a country, and I've often noticed this, it's not only our country, most countries, our legislations are not necessarily from a children's perspective, right? Because, their representation, their views of the world, like we just discussed with Ms. Raina, are very, very different, right? We spoke about initiatives and measures, but when we were to speak about it for everyone in general, but in particular for children, what we're doing, what will be your take on that?
I think we are doing very little on this. I think this is something beyond legislation. Legislation is one thing where the government frames a rule so that you abide by the law. But the law enforcement has to be there. That is one side. But if we talk about the children, that two parts of the children, one is that awareness, and we said that let us start from the school so that it comes a part of the curriculum, that what is the traffic rules, how to maintain the road safety, the discipline part of it. On the other side, I think we are, as parents or as guardians, have also a responsibility that when we go out with our children and try to cross the road, we should also inculcate that habit within themselves, that how to cross the road, when to cross the road. If we go abroad and we know that we all, as Indians, stand by the side of the road and we don't cross, when we come back to India, we do completely differently. Now, all the children, whether they are in school or outside, they learn from ourselves. So my thought is that yes, there will be legislation. Legislation can come, and we are all trying to have the right kind of legislations, and different kind of legislation has actually happened in the last 5 to 10 years to support this. But as far as children is concerned, uh, I think the parental guidance, educating the even the adults that what to tell to the children, that is very very important.
Creating safer roads for children necessitates the involvement of multiple stakeholders. These include government agencies responsible for infrastructure and road safety regulations, law enforcement authorities, transportation departments, education institutions, parents, and community organizations. Each stakeholder plays a crucial role in implementing necessary measures and promoting awareness to protect children during their commute. However, the question remains, how can we effectively coordinate and ensure the active participation, the choreography rather, of all these stakeholders to achieve comprehensive road safety for children? We just spoke about how there are so many stakeholders, who are involved when it comes to making our roads safer, right? And it's something, unless you sit down and think about it, you don't realize it's not any one department. Right? There are so many stakeholders who come together, and that's the reality of most societies and ours as well. Equally true is the other reality we live in, which is when it comes to big infrastructural changes. The higher the budget of it, of course, the longer it will take, the longer the legislations will take. From that point of view, what are some of the low-cost infrastructural changes that we can do, from a lower hanging fruit perspective that can improve safety?
I think first of all, to install a very well designed speed bumps and humps in the accident prone areas. Paint them properly so that in the night, if there is no light on the road, street lights like on a busy road or something, it is being seen. So that is one. Clearly marked pedestrian crossings, which we don't see, with proper signage and zebra crossings, zebra markings. Now, zebra markings are one. During my childhood, I could see lots of zebra crossings in number of places. You will not find them mostly in the large cities, small cities. I don't know. Yes, there are some model roads or model cities being designed, maybe there, but in large cities they are now almost disappeared, so we have to bring it back and to mark properly, apply reflective paints on roads, lanes and pedestrian crossings to enhance visibility so that we know that where we have to do it, clearly display side limit signs. And of course the another part is that to put the law enforcement mechanisms, not by police, by maybe a simple camera, like whatever we it is being done in large cities nowadays. And you get a challan, and suddenly if you get a challan of few thousand rupees, next time most probably you will remember and you will not do the same thing. And implementing traffic calming measures with speed limits, speed bumps, and prominent signage. The digital mechanism that is there in India is pretty strong today and very, very advanced. So we can do it at a very low cost of transaction and can go and implement those rules. So these are extremely low cost, and organizations like a SaveLIFE Foundation, the kind of a tactical changes that they do on the design, some of those places we are also involved. Now these are very low cost, and you actually put that in place not only for one day, but maybe 2 3 years continuously. I'm pretty sure, and I'm very confident that people will change in their way they go about on the roads, or the way we drive or not drive in that manner.
Hussein, I want to come to you with the next question, which is children are especially vulnerable in school zones, right, or school districts, which I feel is the absolute tragedy of this entire narrative. That place where it is supposed to be the safest place, a place where all of them congregate and go to school. This is the high danger spot, right? What are the things that can be done to make school zones and areas around them a bit more safer? That's my first question to you.
I think the areas around school zones or school zones need to be mapped for risk, for multimodal transport, for what kind of shared sort of spaces there are, and ensure that children who are coming through different modes, whether that's privately organized or whether that's organized by the school, that you're able to segregate them, ensure that they enter school in a manner that is safe. And so, one of the most important things is, of course, tracking how the children are coming, mapping where they're coming from, but then also ensuring that the roads are designed in such a way that makes them feel safe. So, like Partha said, we have done a few tactical redesign trials around school zones, but also around intersections which see a lot of schools in their vicinity. And what it helped us do was through quick, low cost, cheap sort of, tactics with paint, cones, barricades. We were able to create lanes for children. We were able to reduce their exposure time, exposure distance. So to ensure while they're on road, they don't feel that the roads only belong to cars or to bigger vehicles, that they own that road as well. And there's a sort of, there's modal equity. So if as pedestrians, they are there on the road, that they feel safe. And what our design team generally does is that it works with all stakeholders, the road owning agency, to see what are the challenges, what can be done. And we do a 1 month sort of a trial, and that helps us to also sort of further propose to government what should be the permanent sort of redesign of that intersection to ensure that children don't face the kind of dangers they face, and they feel safe while they're traveling. So engineering and design, I think, is one part of the puzzle. And then the second, of course, is, mapping on part of the schools and the authorities to ensure that they know where the children are coming from, and ensuring that all those sort of routes are made safe. And that's the intervention sort of area for that tactical redesign.
Yeah. As you were saying about how they own the roads, children, that is, I was just thinking how it is so much at odds with how we actually treat them. Like one of the first things I taught my daughter when we started walking in on the road is just make sure whenever you hear a sound of a car, just move, move to the side, right? Which is the practical situation. Mr. Anna, I spoke to you about my daughter and my experiences, and especially when it comes to school commute. One thing I've realized is, especially today, when there are different uh, people from different economic places coming together to the same school, and that also means that the school commute systems are not consistent, right? And it's
Right.
very, very different from how it is in a developed country, right? Where if it is a school district, it is, that it is either going to be mostly in a school bus, very rarely in the parent's car. But here, like we spoke, there is auto, there is someone, people are going to drop them probably on a bike, so on and so forth. That, I guess, is the urban reality, of India. What can we do, especially when it comes to people who are using private transport methods where the school does not have the control? How can we ensure at least a base level safety in that?
I think with privately organized transport as well, I think, of course, either you're coming in your four-wheeler or two-wheeler, or you're organizing even the autos, on your own. You're not doing that through school. So for different sort of, at least for two-wheelers and four-wheelers, I think the usage of safety equipment, child helmets, which is again now mandated by law, is important. I think ensuring that you're in a certain speed. So, for example, with child helmets, the speed should be 30 kilometers, and people generally feel that from 30 to 40, it's not such a huge difference. But it is, because the ability of a human body to sort of absorb energy and impact due to a road crash is minimal, and that delta with 30 to 40 is huge. So it's very important that certain speed limits are adhered to. Similarly, with four wheelers, like we discussed earlier, child restraint systems offer great protection. And I think, of course, it's only a certain sort of section of people who can afford those vehicles. But if you have privilege, then make that privilege work for you as well, by ensuring that have your children in child restraint systems. And for people who are organizing, autos, and who are organizing the other modes on their own, I think there is only certain things that can be done. One, of course, is speed, and the second is design. That they are, when these vehicles are out there on road, we're offering by way of design them space where they don't interact with heavy vehicles, but they're not interacting with trucks. But that's not the reality in our country, right? I mean, a lot of schools are near
Yeah.
highways or are situated right on highways. So then, what we need to do is we need to map where the schools are in our country. But in terms of where are they situated, which road is it? Is it a sort of a street, just is it a highway? Is it a district road? What kind of crashes can happen around it? So that proactive mapping, keeping children at center of it, needs to happen. And only then we would be able to prioritize and ensure and create a ranking in terms of where action needs to happen first. So in my sort of head, the first place or first set of schools where action needs to be taken is all schools on highways. Like, we have a listing of black spots in the country, and there's prioritized action there. There should be specific action on near and address issues near these schools, because when they mix with heavy vehicles, that's when the exposure to risk increases tremendously for children. And I mean, we recently saw in UP, and I think you also covered in one of the episodes, Karthik, about a school. I mean, it was a school vehicle. There were no children in it, but it was driving on the wrong side, and 8 people died in that, including 2 children. So I think it's important to note that if you are part of a school ecosystem, then also ensure that the drivers are trained to know how to drive a particular class of vehicle. There's in the Motor Vehicle Amendment Act, there are special rules, and even in the under driving licenses, if you are going to carry and transport hazardous material, you are given specific training. You also have to get your license renewed more frequently because you are doing a more sort of responsible sort of job. Similarly, with people who are driving school vehicles, I think the training needs to happen more frequently. The licenses should be renewed at a sort of maybe annually. So I think there are a lot of factors which need to be looked at and ensure that children are safe while on roads in India.
One of the reasons we're doing this in this form, as a podcast, is to bring this into the discourse of the listeners, right? So that people can reflect on some of the things we are talking about, and they can bring in personal changes. They can internalize what you just spoke, over the last half an hour or so, and internalize it. If there is one or two messages you want to leave with the listeners today, specifically when it comes to increasing safety for children who are commuters, what would they be?
For the listeners, I would say that as a responsible citizen, it is our responsibility towards ourselves, to the society, and toward family that we use our roads very, very responsibly. Number one. Number two, as a collective voice, we should go back to the society, to our communities, to educate them that how they should behave, not only while crossing the roads, but while driving, and how to take their own safety by wearing a helmet, by wearing the seat belts, and not overspeeding under whatever circumstance it may be, except for if you are carrying a very sick patient to the hospital. There also you should use an ambulance, or you should use some other marker. So this is one, that as a community, as a family man, as a person, of the citizen, we should do it, and we should inculcate the habit in our children as well. The second one, I would say, that to do something like this great, because it is very bad to hear that we are the road test capital of the world. But the small measures that we spoke about, that creating those small speed bumps, creating those road signages, actually, as a community, we can do it in participation with the local governments. We can take up a stretch of the road as a community, and we can start painting it and maintaining it the way we maintain our plants, our trees, and so on and so forth. So, my message to the listeners are that please be safe, not only for yourself, but also to your family. By for saving 1 minute, the life of the entire family will be ruined. So sometimes when we are in a hurry, we should we should just think about our family and ourselves, that what that 1 minute can give to you, give to your family, and make the country also a more prosperous country. As I mentioned, that we lose a few percentage points of GDP growth because of this road death and the injury, which of course has a higher impact on the national productivity per se.
Mr. Ghosh, Ms. Raina, thank you so much. An extraordinarily insightful and powerful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. That brings us to the end of another episode of Milestones, the Save Life podcast. My name is Karthik Nagarajan. If you've been tuning in and feel that road safety deserves way more attention than it gets, please do consider sharing this episode with your family and friends. Do also review us on whichever podcast app you're listening to us on. If you're watching this on YouTube, do leave a comment to let us know what you would like to see us cover next. For more on all things road safety, please visit SaveLIFE Foundation's website at www.savelifefoundation.org or any of its social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, drive safe, stay safe.
IVM